figure it out. Good afternoon. Let's call to order the Cities Association of Santa Clara County Executive Board meeting of February 3rd, 2025 at 4:34 p.m. First up is roll call.
Larry Klein.
Present.
Tina Walia.
Present.
J.R. Fruin.
Here.
Elliot Scazola.
Here.
Lisa Flegger.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Next up is oral communications. This is an opportunity for the public to speak on an item not on our agenda today. Is there any member of the public in the room or remote wishing to speak?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to our consent agenda of the approval of the executive committee meeting minutes of January 21st, 2025. Were there any changes? Is there any member of the public remote or in person?
No.
Okay. I'll close public comment. Is there a motion? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Oh, so motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by Walia, seconded by Flegger. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Next up is the president update. So sorry, seems like all these meetings are very back to back. We'll get into a normal rhythm later, at least next month. But definitely these last few weeks have been a little hurried, to say the least, especially if you were at the selection committee on top of everything else last week. It was a little crazy from a week standpoint. But I just want to say welcome everyone again. Since we met just last week, it seems like we'll keep the comments relatively short. I think our meeting last week went well. Luckily, we were able to get through the selection committee. Of course, we've at least got one person coming back saying that they now want to apply to one of the things that we didn't appoint. So we will be having another selection committee most likely in April now, but we had some mid-year ones that we knew we were going to have to fill. So
That one wasn't appointed.
it was Campbell was Santa Clara for a recycling waste commission. And so
Essential cities.
remember we had no takers for a few positions.
Yes.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, you didn't tell me. The multiple emails that Shali sent weren't enough to everyone, but it is what it is. There'll always be that, as we know. That's all of my overview. We'll hopefully keep this meeting relatively quick. Next up is a review of the February 13th meeting agenda. First is the LAC agenda.
Do you want to,
Sure.
or do you want me to share your email?
You can share the email and
Okay.
then we can sort of discuss people's thoughts. And really welcome you, Tina.
Okay. Just excuse the other emails there. There you go. Don't see that?
Yeah.
So I looked at last January's agenda and tried to model it a little bit after that. And I think the overview of the LAC process was really helpful last year to orient the new folks on it.
I noticed that the general presentation on that was something that Nisa had given. So I was thinking, Tina, if you would like to pick up that role this time since you were the last chair.
I agree.
Great idea.
Second that. Okay.
If you're available, I don't want to
I'm
volunteer you.
I'm in the meeting. I'm in the meeting, so I'm available.
Okay.
Let's get that aside. I was looking at the draft agenda in the packet and I was very thrilled to see Honorable Lisa Flegger. So that's why the hesitation. Happy to do that. Yes, and let me know what you're looking for, anything specific.
Sure. I was thinking maybe just to go over kind of, here's how we had this work last year. Here's how it's historically worked. Especially since I don't know, last year we had Rennie Public Law do a presentation on sort of what the legislative priorities were in the legislature, and that was a useful primer. I think that certainly that sort of discussion is valuable. I guess the question I would have to you, Shali, is do you think they'd be available to reprise that
I'll certainly ask them.
Okay. Because they're going to have a much better feel for what the temperature is in Sacramento right now. And I'm sure that they're all a little distracted, both with things that are happening at the national level and with relief in Southern California. But, at some point, they will start introducing more bills, and then we will get actual text as the process unfolds. So having an idea of where their focus points are going to be is going to be useful, I think, especially for the fourth point, which is kind of what everything builds up to. We'll have a discussion later in our agenda on the priorities that the board was looking to set. And I was thinking that we should probably be aligning that entirely through the LAC, and deciding what types of bills we want to watch and what bill ideas people might have to present to our partners in the legislature. And then they had reached out to Patrick Aaron's office about potentially speaking, and he appears to be available for that day. So I think each of these sections broken down roughly by 20 minutes, and I can probably steal time from section 2 if necessary.
So very quick question through Chair.
Need to block turn off your,
Turn off the-
yeah, your pop-up. Go ahead.
I gotta turn off. my-
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
Oh.
quick question. Which part of this, because I now will ignore the agenda here. Which two, item which two what?
All right, well, now it's gone.
Yeah,
But it was, so item 2 is an introduction to LAC, right?
okay, is that,
And so it would cover 3 subcategories. One is an overview of the process that we have, and then another is our calendar, so that everyone knows when we meet.
Yeah.
And why. And then the last one would be the legislative calendar. All right, so that's sort of when things are happening in Sacramento, so people know.
so again, 2A, B or C for me? Because one of
Oh,
those,
yours would be the LAC process, so 2A.
2A, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. And I agree with your suggestion.
Jenny's raised her hand.
If that group is available, I would
Renee
support that. That was very helpful last year.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful.
If I were going to put it anywhere, I think I would put it probably under board priorities. Or as a 2D. One of those two would be an appropriate place for it.
And I think that's why because Jenny's with Renee Public Law.
Yes,
So I think that's why
I
she's
figured,
raising her
yes,
hand.
exactly. I saw her hand as well. So I'll start. I got the answer so that I
Okay.
can coordinate with both of you.
Jenny, do you have a
Yes.
comment? Go ahead.
Just a minor point that it's now the California Public Policy Group, and it's more of a strategic partnership with my firm. That they're a standalone entity that you had with Dane, who came last year, and I can work with Shali, get her any contact information she might need.
Thank you, Jenny.
Whoever the lobbyist now is the idea.
Yep.
Thank you. Heather? Go ahead. Comments?
No, I was just going to make another suggestion. If you want to just copy paste that and put a Word document there, that way we are not seeing your email and it's not getting recorded. Just a different suggestion.
Or just pop,
That's actually very good.
or just pop it up. into-
Yeah. Either of the two, something,
I tried to just,
because it's not just us.
Right.
thank you.
That's what it is.
But yeah, if people have a suggestion on where to put that, whether it would be in section 2 or section 4, I'd appreciate thoughts on that. And then we can hopefully finalize if no one has any other objection.
I think the order with which we went last year, I can take a look at it and we can tweak that. I'm happy to email you. The order with which in which we did it last year worked very well. I remember Nisa giving an update and remember the law firm walking us, and then we had the calendar. The calendar can be pulled anyway. That was very, very helpful to
Here
all
it is.
the LAC members.
Was there a D or there's no D?
I think he suggested.
I was suggesting it could either be section 2D or section 4A.
I would move it up, not 4. I would move it within 2 because we're looking at the introduction to, right?
You're talking about the lobbyist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think it's a standalone.
Okay.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
It could be a replacement for 3, so it just, after that then would be Assemblymember Aaron's and then board priorities discussion. And I think that would flow well. You would go from the legislative calendar to then handing it off to them to describe where the legislature seems to be focused, and then it would be a handoff to Patrick to describe where he's focused, and then we would have board priorities, which is where we're focused. So it's good.
I didn't catch, where did you want to put it?
The current description there, but inserting between 3 and 2, a new 3.
Oh,
So 3 and 4 would move down to become 4 and 5, and a new 3 would be there instead for.
So are you,
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Sorry.
so that is the new 3.
Mhm.
And then 4 is Assemblymember Patrick Ahern?
Yep.
And then discussion of bills to watch?
Yes.
Or the other way around?
I think this makes the most sense to me, because if we're going to think also of like bill ideas to support, there will be plenty of commentary before that from the assembly member on the topic. So
Okay.
it'll make it a little easier, and that way we're not also forcing him to wait.
And, yes, and not if we run out of time for whatever reason,
Or
we're
if
giving
he's-
him more time.
Yeah.
We can condense the last one.
Yep.
Or if he's late. And keep in mind, from the bills to watch section, normally, I think what's been good in the past is, okay, you're not prepared tonight. In the next 3 weeks, send me your top
Precisely.
2 to 5 bills, and we'll figure out what as a group,
Yeah.
what we're going to be following.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily like, here is a particular ABX whatever or SPX whatever that you're necessarily watching. It's things in this category that you're looking for. Right? Because a lot of stuff won't even be posted at that point, and there will be a lot of spot bills that have no contents whatsoever. They'll just be intent.
Would you like me to, when I send out the meeting packet to the LAC members, to ask them if they have any bills to, so they're kind of thinking
Sure, I
about
just
it,
don't
put it
know
in
that
there?
there's a whole lot that's been introduced yet anyway, so.
Fair enough.
And since we're at the beginning of a 2-year cycle, it's not like there's even old stuff that you can go back to. It's just, it's all dead, so.
Janny?
Over kind of the holiday break, I got an inquiry from the town attorney in Los Gatos, and she indicated that the attorneys were kind of interested in receiving some of this information as well. So I thought I would just throw that out there, because I didn't quite know what to do with it, but she specifically asked about LAC and this information they're getting about pending legislation. So I don't know if that's something to think about, but I'll just pass it along.
We're recording the sessions, yes?
Yes.
So they can always review the recording.
Right. And whatever, and the meeting minutes will have any
Yeah.
ledge updates that are listed there.
And that's what I was gonna suggest, and I know JR is a great writer, I've seen your writing. Either you summarize what happened or in the minutes. And if it's not too much, take that additional step and send it to the city attorney's group.
Oh,
There are partners. Not additional work, but just like send them minutes
Yeah.
summarizing it to them.
I mean, if they really want to report, I basically write one anyway as part of a council activities report. So I can just expand it. It's actually not that big of a deal. It just might be a little slow.
Tim, can you talk to Rebecca to see, she's going to the county, city attorney's monthly meeting, and seeing whether or not she wants to attend our LAC,
Report out.
and then report out there. So if it's like, might as well, we haven't done that in the past,
Right.
but there's no reason if the city, thank you, Janny, if the city attorneys want to be part of this organization, it only makes sense.
There's also no reason why they couldn't either call in and
Right.
ask a question as a
Yeah.
member of the public, or come directly and do so if they so choose. They'll get some free pizza.
But trying to, but trying to get that many people into a room, so
Yeah.
it's probably easier for conceivably Rebecca to report out if she's
It's
going
an
to that
attorney.
meeting.
I can,
Yeah.
I'm happy to ask. her
And she'd be a
what
city
she-
attorney summarizing for city attorney.
Right,
Right,
and
she
so-
speaks the language,
so
she'll know what
maybe-
they wanna hear.
Right, and maybe that becomes a standard going forward for the organization, because we've always been tied to the city managers,
Mhm.
but it's kind of like, oh, the city attorneys are also meeting and deciding on their own, but yeah.
Nobody likes those sick.
I think that's a brilliant.
One last question for JR. President Klein, just an asterisk next to Patrick, because I know sometimes or speakers have limitation on time.
Yes.
What's the start time for the meeting, and is he available the entire time?
Yeah, so that's something I've
Yeah.
been in conversation with Victoria about, and so, you know, this is a placeholder. You can consider it I'll call it tentative plus. In other words, it sounds pretty certain, but I'm still waiting for final confirmation, and then once we have that, then we can, you know, we can always handle where it is on the schedule
Okay.
based upon the flow of the meeting, so. You know, yes, things happen, people get here late, or they have to be here early, or some crazy thing happens, or they have to appear remotely if that's the only thing that makes sense. My impression of him is that if he is here, he would want to be here personally.
And they should be done, I think, Thursday, you know, lately. And so he spoke, he had his pancakes and policy in Sunnyvale on Saturday. So we got the update. He is the freshman who, which you'll hear again, has proposed the most bills from the freshman class of assembly members. So he has something to be proud of.
That's what happens when you inherit good staff, right? So.
You're already connected. You're not having to set up everything from scratch.
Exactly.
Anything else with lack?
No, I think that's probably about as much as we're gonna be able to get through. It might be even a tad ambitious, so.
I think you're fine. It's the bills to watch, which is the big question mark. And there might be a few that are very prepared with long lists and trying to, I think the hardest thing is keeping them pared down.
Yep.
It's like, we want to do, I like these 15 bills that have been proposed, and sometimes that's not reasonable. Go
One
ahead.
suggestion based on my experience last year. Some members would be very engaged, as President Klein said, with numerous bills, many bills. And the others are very interested, but may not be that prepared. And one of the, I got a push from some members, and the approach I took was, and you will take your own approach, my approach was what impacts most of the cities, align it with the board priorities that we are going to talk about right now. And that way, and manage when the bills are getting into. So I could talk one-on-one when somebody was very persistent. I said, we will get to it. This is not the right time. And you may be one of the 2 cities interested, what is impacting most of the cities. That was one approach that really helped me. And at the end of the year, those very people who felt like they were being ignored, they came and thanked me for the very balanced approach I took.
Yeah, well, I really appreciated the way that you handled it, and I would anticipate doing the same thing, and I think that would be good advice for anyone running the committee. Because you're going to have people who have not just things that specifically impact their city and that they care about, but also just things that they personally care about, and are not necessarily strongly related to the mission of the organization. So,
Thank you.
Okay, can you pull up the board agenda?
I didn't have it prepared because I wasn't sure that
That's
was
fine.
gonna.
And then as far as the board agenda, consent agenda is fine. President update, which will be probably a short also since we just met, but we'll see, you know, definitely one of the things that I just want to raise everyone's awareness. So I don't think well, Shali was there. Our Congress members had a big press conference on Saturday, and especially hearing from the county on how much of their budget is dependent upon federal dollars is interesting to say the least. And where that stands from a county standpoint and how that basically trickles to all of our cities, but especially from a healthcare standpoint and how that directly affects, you know, our residents. We can talk about ICE and we talk about other things, but just talking about funding for Anderson Reservoir, for Head Start programs, those are things that will conceivably directly affect the operations of our county, which is a critical thing. Ready?
Yeah, sorry, it's
Fine.
still spinning.
So it was interesting. There wasn't an itemized list. What happened was Zoe had brought in experts from different organizations, Valley Water and like 6 or 7 different other organizations to meet with the press directly, to talk about how that funding would directly affect their organization. That being said, there wasn't like, here's a press release of, and it was very rushed, mainly because the Democratic whip told all the Congress members on Thursday, have a press release this weekend, or have a press conference this weekend, talking about how the federal funding directly affects your districts. And so it was Licardo, Lofgren and Pana and Williams talking about the county.
And to add to that, James did something similar for the executive leadership in the county.
Oh.
Presenting from the county perspective, the programs it's gonna impact, how much we're dependent on federal funding.
3.2 billion, I think it is, 3.1 billion.
I was thinking 3.6, but it could be
Oh,
3.2.
Hard to remember.
But it's billions.
Yes.
And it's core programs, right? And he was also talking about, you know, websites being shut down, like all the, I don't know if he shared that as well. So we got a briefing from James and we knew that this press conference was gonna happen. And so to the discussion that we had at the board meeting last week, it'd be great to have, whenever this comes up, either James or Steve Preminger present. And I think we talked about that, either Steve or James.
Right.
Because it's eye-opening.
No, absolutely. And I didn't, so actually, now that we're talking about this, let's go through this for this agenda. Because conceivably, hearing from the county, and it affects all of our cities, but they're kind of front and center as far as this is concerned. I haven't talked to Steve, but I do think conceivably, at least and you talk about pivoting, okay, maybe there's an item here for Steve to come every week, whether or not it's Steve or Jeff or someone in the office.
Yep.
Or every meeting to talk about what they're doing from a county standpoint, because we'll talk about speakers in just a minute. So for this meeting, meeting, consent standard president update, you talk a little bit about the Bay Area host committee. I talked to Chappie, however, he is about to head on vacation, so he won't be there, but go ahead.
So this is something that Ruth Chakata had reached out to me last year and we unfortunately couldn't fit her in. So as you know, there's a whole bunch of really big sporting events that are coming to the Bay Area, and she wants all of the cities to be prepared and I think to benefit from it as well. It's a great way to showcase what we have here in the Bay Area. So she had given a presentation to the city managers group a few months ago. And I thought it was really good. It was very long, so I can ask her to cut it down. But she asked if she could come back. And so I've been trying to get a hold of her to see if she can make it on the 13th. So I haven't gotten confirmation from her yet.
And I'd just say that the presentation she gave the city managers group, the whole thing is not far enough along. Like, I don't remember there being a lot of specifics. They were still negotiating agreements. So I'm not sure my point being, she may have to come back again later when they sort of have everything figured out.
But I think that's a moving target as far
It
as this
is.
year is
So
concerned,
it's definitely worth the time. I just
Right.
don't want the expectations to be like everything's all figured out already.
Right. And I think it's important. One of the reasons I want to bring this up is because for each of our cities, especially those cities adjacent to Santa Clara, it's important to look at overtime hours, how it affects your public safety. There's certain things that we know that it will be affecting our cities. And yes, we're supposed to get reimbursed at some point, but if we don't put it in now, from a federal standpoint, I was in DC, the funding has kind of already been set aside from a federal standpoint, and at least according to several of the cities, there's not enough money there. And so because there's so many simultaneous sites around the US, they're like, okay, this is how much it is for every region. And that really doesn't cover when you start looking at security at the stadium, but more importantly for a month-long event, the security for the teams and everything else, it's a much bigger task. And we won't know until the end of this year what teams are chosen. And then whether or not they will be adjacent to the stadium, they might choose elsewhere, but they're already scouting. Most of the teams are already scouting the different regions because they don't know at the end of the day, at the end of the day, what the lots will be. In December is when those final dates or final teams are chosen. So yes, if we can get them on board, if she won't get back to you, bug Chappie.
Okay,
He's on the committee. And if he, even if he's on vacation, he'll tell you the right person to bring. So,
okay.
so somebody should be available to come to that meeting. If not, I would love to get that, so I want to get that over with because, not over with, but I want to get that agendized because there's long-term prep that our cities need to be thinking about, whether or not you want to be the base camp of, or the fan zone of Los Gatos, where it was at the last time FIFA was in the area, or if you need to do a certain amount of budgeting, and this is the time that we're all kind of getting ready to talk about budgets. This is the time to talk about those impacts. So yeah, if that works out, and if she or that team can't be here, and I'm hoping they will, I did talk to Jeff Rosen.
Oh, okay.
He's willing to come in at some point to talk about, ICE and scams and all this, and whether or not it'll be perfect. Either him or one of the deputy DAs should be, but because we're such a short period this time, sooner you can find out whether or not they can be there, the better. Yeah, and I would assume 35 minutes or so, give them a 20-minute presentation and 15 minutes of questions. And then we can talk about priorities.
Yeah. You want me to
Is it,
tell you
hang
what-
on, do we? So we're talking about priority setting at number 5. I should have kind of swapped that here, but from question, go ahead. Yeah.
I
Yes, sure.
had seen another email from you, can't recall where, there were some other speakers suggested. In case we are unable to, and I'm not suggesting we change it, but in case we are unable to do 3A, one of the things I saw was the ICE, and then there was another coming from the assessor's office. I saw some email somewhere.
That's approving that co-sponsorship of that event. And actually, can you,
Okay.
I have not.
that's fine. Can you talk a little bit about that approval?
Um,
Kind of out of order, but
and that's
Oh, is it
fine.
in the details here? My apologies if I pulled it out of.
So County Assessor Larry Stone, who we all know, over the last year has realized how little a lot of council members elected understand the assessor's office, the work the assessor's office does, and how valuable it is to our county or to our cities. And so he and his deputy assessor came up with this idea to do the assessor 101 for city elected officials. And especially with what's happening right now in this financial climate that we're in, these revenue sources are even more important. So, and I'm sure you guys know this, like 10% or billions of dollars in property tax revenues goes to cities, right? And with vacancies and everything happening right now in the real estate market, it's critical that cities understand the potential impact. And so that's the kind of session. So it's an informational session 101.
at the cities association meeting or as a
No,
separate
at
meeting?
at the county, in one of the county buildings, and also there'll be a Zoom option. So Autumn Young, who is the deputy assessor, who works with Larry on outreach efforts like this. She's planning to do both Zoom and in person. The tentative date is Friday, March 21st, and it would be from 12 to 1, maybe 12 to 1:30. So it's during the lunch hour. And again, it's Assessor 101 for cities to really understand, what's at risk here, especially in this climate.
So we'll talk about that.
My
when we get to that.
apologies, I
That's fine.
must have read two emails
It's
and
in
caught it.
person.
No, it's
on
an
the-
agendized item on today's.
Okay.
It's not part of this upcoming agenda, but
Okay,
that's,
my apologies.
but I didn't know whether or not they wanted to speak here or whether, okay.
It's their own event. They just appreciate the co-sponsorship to help push it out. And they think it will get more attention if you say the Cities Association is co-sponsoring it versus just the assessors department.
All good. Okay. And then as far as regional appointed, I know thanks to Nisa for doing this previously. I do think that's important.
Okay.
What haven't we given updates for, can you check? And whether or not we can fit one in, like a 20-minute update there, I think makes sense. That's less priority than we'll talk about some of the later ones. So when we start talking about priority topic, or what is it? Sorry.
Board priorities.
Board priorities. That's more important than an update, but if you can kind of go through and figure out what we haven't heard from. I know we didn't get through everything last year.
There were a couple. Shelley, remember we're tracking.
Yeah.
Right.
Jonathan Weinberg was one of them.
Yes.
But he's no longer in that seat. Did he, right? It's,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it may be your new seat.
Pete,
Which one?
Oh,
Delete.
Pete. Oh, that's one.
because that's seat 7, EOAC.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm seat 5, not Los Altos.
Okay. So
There were a
definitely,
couple.
yeah, so, but I like continuing that effort because just hearing generally what's happening at these boards, I think raises awareness. It's always amusing when we go into the selection committee meeting and a lot of people are like, have no clue on what this organization is doing. So At least raising the awareness of those people that are appointing or hopefully raising their hand to volunteer for some of these positions would be useful.
When you say 20 minutes, is that two updates, 10 minutes each, or one update?
Just one update.
One
It's
update.
like, it's to have more than one at this meeting, maybe at a future meeting, but I think one a month is my goal. I don't, more
I
than that is trying to do too many logistics of people who aren't usually scheduled to come to this meeting or come to our Thursday night meetings.
Do you want to keep that at number 5? So priorities at 4, and the update at 5?
Yeah, so priorities it for, definitely I want to go through priorities because that'll be a lot of discussion. Updates at 5. City Selection Committee is just an update, although it'll probably also talk about, so at least lists everybody who was appointed. Can you send that out? Because I don't,
Yeah, everyone, all the appointments?
all the appointments from last week. Just so that, I know you contacted all the city clerk or all the clerks, but that's important just for to raise everyone's awareness. Then the LAC update.
The one comment I would offer on the order that you're proposing is that I think all of the things, well, at least currently here from 5 onward, are all informational in character.
Correct.
So if, for example, you lost quorum, or people had to leave early, it wouldn't cause you any trouble.
Right.
If the discussion and possible action of priority areas, which is probably the thing that most people really care about, is front and center, then they'll have a little bit of an easier time participating.
Well,
Which is the one.
Yeah, so 3 and 4, we just mainly, we try to get this, because of the speaker, we try to allow them to be close to the beginning as opposed to, yes, the number 4 could go on for a while. So it's important to have the speaker in and then let's talk about and even then, I'm guessing, just seeing what we saw last week, I don't think number 4 will go that long at the end of the day. I think, it'll be relatively smooth.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And I think it's in general, well, it's setting the tone and it was very collaborative. I've really enjoyed the discussion because we've
It
seen
was a
it.
great meeting, Larry.
We've seen it go off. We've seen it go off the rails. Anyway.
It's a first.
Yeah.
Just quick, Elliot, did you have a question?
No, I'm
Oh,
good.
sure.
Thanks.
Just going back to number 3 and a suggestion, since Ruth hasn't been confirmed. If Ruth, for whatever reason, can't make it, should we bring in James Williams if he's available? And Steve, this is top of mind about what's happening with federal funding and the new federal. So that to me is a good backup.
If he's, and that was the whole thing. And so it was him or it was the DA. And so, so for me,
yes.
so
Yes.
someone from the county is
Yes.
the backup as far as
Perfect.
this item is concerned.
Yeah.
And then if and actually I haven't talked to Jeff, but conceivably, whether or not Jeff or Steve want to give a short update. You know, I don't want to overburden this agenda. So, you know, if Jeff is willing to talk, you know, the problem is this could go on for half an hour, 45 minutes easily. And this is the problem. Steve would keep it
Exactly.
concise.
You read my mind.
Right.
I think James or Jeff would need to be a standalone to
Yes.
replace Ruth.
Yes.
But Steve could just give a quick update. Steve could still be on this agenda with one of those three speakers.
Correct.
Yeah.
I like that idea. And that was my, you know, it's like, that was what I was going to do here is like, okay, let's do a county update on funding and then Steve and see if he's fine with
Sure.
giving that. And keep in mind that we're not asking for a detailed thing, but you know, I think it's important just to have a quick discussion, but at least 20 minutes here
Okay.
After reports from regional appointed reps. So between 5 and 6, so 5.5. And conceivably, after you talk to Steve, if he has a bigger update, you know, conceivably we lose a report from regional appointees because we're a week and a half away from the meeting and we haven't confirmed who would be speaking on what topic. So conceivably 5 goes away.
And there'll be 3 more executive orders.
I know. Exactly.
At least.
Yes,
Okay.
Vice Chair.
So number 4, I really like the way this conversation is flowing. That meeting on Thursday, just 4 days ago both meetings were phenomenal. Very beautifully handled.
Thank
You kept us on subject and achieved so much in a very collaborative, positive manner. Especially when I counted later on, there were 5 new members and they were all happy. I observed that they actually were making those remarks, which is phenomenal. Number 4, is this the time you want to just think at a very high level? We already have a longer list from the board. And how are you planning at the next on the 13th, how to pare that list down?
No, are you talking about?
The
what?
priority areas,
Oh,
because
yeah.
we already got the long list.
Yeah. Right. So we'll talk about it in just a few moments.
Oh, okay.
We'll have
that's
pared
fine.
it down and we'll say, here are the few that didn't.
Here are the winners.
Here are the winners.
Oh, we are
So-
coming to that.
Yes.
Okay, that's
That,
what.
not this item.
Yeah.
Next item.
It's a little
On our
confusing
agenda.
between the
We're talking
executive
about-
committee agenda and the board agenda.
Oh,
But it's on the executive committee agenda.
Yes. We're about to get there.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, never mind.
That's fine. That's fine. Selection committee, Black. So these are just quick updates on whatever happened at JR's meeting, my meeting from last week. City managers updates, which you won't have had a meeting, correct?
No.
So,
But yeah,
Well, no, we
second
do on the
Wednesday.
12th.
so the
so
day
I will
before,
have an
oh,
update,
so
yeah.
perfect. Okay,
Yeah.
good. And then executive director update and then choice and challenges. So I'm fine with that. We'll add the
Okay,
other items. So we'll add a place, talk to Steve Preminger, and then more importantly, if we don't hear from the Bay Area Host Committee, then talk to James or Jeff.
okay.
Everyone fine?
I'm fine. I kept on looking at that. Now
I know.
Now I know. Thank you.
That's cute.
Thank you. Yeah,
It's the agenda of the
Yes.
agenda, the problem.
yeah, sorry.
And
I get it.
conceivably from now on, we'll put this agenda last so that we get through all of it. Okay. Okay, was there any member of the public wishing to speak on that item?
Should I
Okay.
stop sharing?
Yes. Okay, let us continue. Update on Gilroy's pending Cities Association membership
Do you
discussion.
want to vote to accept the agendas?
Oh,
To
yes,
approve the agendas.
So moved
Second.
thank you.
with all
With
the
the changes.
changes.
With all the changes.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the Legislative Action Committee and Board of Directors meeting agendas for February 13th with all of the changes suggested, made by Fliger, seconded by Scazola. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you. Next is item 4, update on City of Gilroy. Janny, did you have any updates from your side?
No, just that both Shelley and I looked for a resolution and we didn't find that we'd actually done a resolution.
Okay. So I know that they were trying to get something on the agenda.
Yeah.
Which it looks like they didn't, I guess, since we didn't give them a draft.
Yes, we don't have we didn't, I don't think we gave our cities a draft resolution, did we?
I don't believe we did, but we did give them a template for a staff report.
Lisa?
Is it, Jenny, that a city is only required to adopt a resolution if they're asking to join post creation of the JPA?
Yes,
Okay. Got it.
I think we strongly suggested that initially, but it's required in the JPA.
Got it.
So we don't have a draft for them. So have we contacted them? Have we contacted them at all on whether or not, you know, we don't, it looks like we don't have a draft resolution that we thought we did when we were going into last week's meeting.
But can we put one together?
Yeah, how?
Make it easy for them?
Yeah, there might be one that some other city already has.
No, because we didn't need it before is the problem.
Sure,
So-
but internally the cities may have done it anyway. I think San Jose may have.
Right, it should be a simple, so Jenny, can you do that or someone on your staff do that? Just to
Yeah,
make,
and
go ahead,
I can also call Andy Faber, their city attorney.
I'd appreciate that, just so that we make this as easy for them from a process standpoint as possible. I was happy that their mayor stayed around for the whole meeting and really seems, you know, engaged as far as that's concerned, so happy that we'll be one big family again, and so, and it's just trying to make sure that, seemingly not by the next meeting, but I was hoping that it might be. So if you can contact their city attorney, just to find out what barriers there are. I'm not sure if they
Happy to.
I don't know if they agendized anything for tomorrow night's meeting. Conceivably, if they haven't, you know, just touch base with them, and if you could update Shali and I on what, you know, where they are in the process, it would be not, the sooner we can get them at the table would just be, I think, better overall, since they've already agreed to sign up and pay the dues. So it's at this point, it's just paperwork.
Happy to.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you.
Any member of the public wishing to speak?
No.
Okay, no action needs to be done on our side. Okay. We'll move on to number 5, board priority setting activity.
Would you like me to tell you the results of the?
Yes.
Okay. So in first place with 16 dots, public safety. Second place with 12 dots, older adults. Third place with 10 dots is council governance. Fourth place with 9 dots, housing and homelessness. Fifth place with 8 dots was mental health. And then 6th place with 7 dots was childcare. And the federal response only got 3 dots.
So definitely I think we have our top 5 without a problem, and mental, childcare, you know, in talking to, Supervisor Ellenberg last week for over coffee. Definitely there's, you know, it's something that she wants to continue pushing forward. So I think it's good from a speaker standpoint to have her or one of the partners come and speak to us at least once this year. But I think it's focusing on the top 5 that we have. From public safety, you know, definitely we talked about fire and disaster preparedness, I think is the top hot topic, older adults. And I think conceivably that ties into multiple things, either housing and homelessness, or other topics. And I think leaving it to either the executive board and then conceivably the board members themselves, but especially the executive board. If you have specific speakers, if you have certain interests that you would like to focus on, it would behoove all of us for us to take the lead. We've seen, you know, the subcommittee sometimes works if there's one person on the board that's really engaged on that topic. But in general, it's sometimes slows things down. And so I think, you know, the top 5 topics are easy, you know, it's an easy call for this organization. And then the federal funding will be discussed. It's like childcare, we can bring in specific speakers and same thing with federal funding, which kind of is county funding and some federal funding. We'll figure out other topics, but I think focusing on the top 5 and trying to get speakers or efforts that we want to do becomes kind of that roundtable discussion that we have on Thursday night. Okay. Comments, questions?
Shelley, can you repeat what number 3 was?
Yeah, certainly.
Oh.
Council governance.
And so, yeah, so from council, going through these public safety, and I know Tina's very interested in EOAC and efforts that are being done there. We have multiple cities that are adjacent to, let's say, fire zones that are very worried. And so that as well as just general disaster preparedness, I think is worthwhile. Older adults, we didn't make much progress, but we can, I think, conceivably highlight that, bringing in SourceWise, bringing in a few other organizations that are doing this either from a housing, a transportation standpoint, a support standpoint. We have these aging communities, which I think are critical. Council governance will be, is my goal for, we've already talked to Kevin Dugan, will be the May, June event, trying to kind of build camaraderie and expectations and norms across the councils in the county. Housing and homelessness is always a hot topic, and it'll be interesting to see what the board is interested in to talk about there. A lot of times that goes into legislative standpoint, but from ABAG, MTC, whether or not there will be a housing bond, there's a lot of questions as far as the region's concerned. Measure A is pretty much spent at this point, and so there's a lot of questions on housing and homelessness. I think conceivably maybe focusing more on homelessness. County care court, I haven't seen any motion on that. I know that they're working on it, they're looking at it, but I have not seen that. So there's a lot of things that this conceivably applies to. And then mental health, I think this is critical, just trying to deal with the ever-changing world we're living in right now. So other comments, questions? Elliot?
Yeah, I was just curious, when it comes to the public safety, natural disaster preparedness thing, has cities ever had CERT come and do a talk at all?
It's been a while, but
Okay.
I think it's worthwhile. Yeah, so there's county CERT and almost all of our communities have internal CERT teams. So definitely, I think it's probably time to bring them back and talk about that from neighborhood preparedness. There's lots of different, each city has its own flavors to a certain degree. And so that, as well as neighborhood watch programs and all that. So there's lots of good ideas that we can talk about, either true public safety or disaster preparedness, that I think is worthwhile. We're going to have our first heavy rain of the season tomorrow, and several flood warnings already in effect so it's whatever disaster we need to prepare for.
And I just thinking on with the fires and everything and everyone freaking out, understandably so. Oh, could this happen to us? Absolutely. But I think this puts power back in the citizens' hands. Once if they see it from the presentation that, oh, I can learn a lot of these same skills that our emergency workers do. I can prepare. I can have storage with food, batteries, radio, all the emergency supplies that I need for my own family. So I feel like it would be great to reassure people that they can actually help themselves too. That they don't have to rely on others necessarily. In a disaster.
Right. And definitely looking at best practices for city beyond that. Some of our cities have arcs of basically cargo containers of food and water, and not water as much as food and cots and basically preparedness items spread throughout. But sharing these ideas across each of our cities, I think, is why this organization's there, and even conceivably what best practices we might need to implement, whether or not it's building that community at the lowest level, since we won't have enough public safety to deal with response when that disaster happens. But then it's also what are cities doing from an emergency standpoint? Yes.
I have a comment, but let's take her
Oh,
question.
sorry.
Super,
I do have.
Would you like me to contact the county first and?
Talk to county, so county CERT,
Okay,
because they cross-train with all of our individual cities. And they'll have the full list of what cities have CERT that they're working with. But yeah, county CERT is probably the easiest, because there's also county-wide CERT training that CERT from the different cities come and train every year, so it's worthwhile. Yeah.
Now, as I shared with you earlier, I would like to focus on this in collaboration with other people. And that was one of the reasons I really wanted to request EOAC. Just came from a meeting with my city manager 2 weeks from Wednesday is our council item that I requested to be agendized on assessment of our disaster preparedness. So I'm looking at what do we have, where are the gaps, and how do we deal with this?
Yeah.
And we just got our this year's first postcard on fire safety preparation sent out to all the residents. We received it 2 days ago. So all the angles, what you can do.
Can you send me a picture?
Sure, I can email it to,
Send it
yeah,
to Shali and
Yeah.
she'll forward it to
Yeah.
the group.
I'll do that.
That'd be useful.
That's very, and so all of these, everything that I'm hearing is great. And I think this could be either a speaker or two in the course of the year, and maybe just sending email information and all of that. Our CERT lead, I met him a few weeks ago. His experience is beyond description for me. He's worked at the state level, he's a Navy guy, he's done all kinds of things, and he trains a lot of CERTs. He gave me the information which I couldn't even absorb everything. So at some point, I will again pick his brain and move forward. So with everything, that's it.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
Any other comments? Any members of the public to speak?
No.
Okay. Next is future meeting topics. We started on item A first. Do you have anything else to add, Nisa, on
Yeah.
the assessor?
Yep.
Okay, and so what is the action requested?
That the Cities Association will co-sponsor the event. Autumn will send out all the materials, and so I'm assuming she'll reach out to Shali for the logo.
Okay.
And then also ask Shali to send it to our distribution list.
Okay.
And my apologies, I was
That's fine.
mixed up.
No
with
problem.
agenda.
That's fine. It's always that way. We'll do better next time. And then the other item was the district's attorney's office. I spoke. We'll see. I think it matches what we're talking about from future agenda standpoints. Whether it's that county update on what their response is to federal changes, and I think that's an ongoing issue. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? No? Is there a motion on item 6A?
Mayor, can I,
Yeah.
just a clarifying question.
Yeah.
I'd forwarded to you and Shali today an email from former Mayor Jan Pepper.
Okay.
With a suggested topic for a future agenda. I noticed that on this agenda, you had itemized 2 items. And as you'll recall from being president of this organization before, you'll get requests.
Yeah.
And I'm just, is this the format where when we get a request, you want to put it on the agenda? Like, how do you, or do you want me to do exactly what I did today? Forward it to you and you figure it out?
I think it's easier that way, and then we can
Okay.
just agendize it.
Okay.
And
Because I didn't
and-
put it on, I was like, I'm gonna have you figure out how
Yes.
you want to.
No, and it's important. So yeah, if you have other speakers that are interested, reach out to Shali, reach out to me, and we'll figure out timing and when it really matters from an organizational standpoint, earlier or later in the year. And you know, I do think trying to get as many people who are trying to talk about their issues, I think is critical. And yeah, it's more here just to update the rest of the executive board that these are conceivable upcoming topics, that's not specifically that we need to approve the speaker. It's kind of, to a certain degree, it's the president's task to make sure that we have a variety of speakers, but especially as we get into the topics, the priorities for the year. If you have speakers, if you have areas that will be part of Thursday night's discussion of if people have certain topics, but definitely there's certain ones we can carve out now. Any other comments? Is there a motion? You should go. To approve co-sponsoring these county assessor.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, second was by Bruin. So motion to approve the city association's co-sponsorship of the event by the Office of the County Assessor. I will word that more appropriately. By Walia, second by Fruin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And we'll move on to item 7. Tim, do you have any new updates?
No new update from.
Since last Thursday, amazing. Item 8, executive director report.
No, I've just been deep into these appointment letters.
Perfect. Thank you for that hard work. I know
Oh, you're welcome.
it was the beginning of the year is always pretty crazy. So thank you for that. Thank you. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting at 5:30.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
Mission.
Bye, Danny. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, Johnny. Thank you.